is tactical gillet weather again, which is good, because it stops the pronunciation of the beer belly. You can't look fatter in the midriff if you look fat everywhere. Right, we are the day after, a little fly up. We're a day after the all-day Sunday effort where we did the seat mount. So the most pressing thing in everyone's mind, has it worked? Let's find out. Paint's dry. Fitted it to the seat. Now, if my plans are correct, I should be able to bolt this in fully assembled with 4 bolts through the floor. It's fully forward, that's why. Right, starting with the back, need to find nuts and washers. Better nuts than washers. Obviously this is still very temporary. A wee loose fit. I think this is the first time I've actually had to get on the floor and under my car in the whole time I've worked on this. I'm now at that stage where I can't just toss it on its side and deal with something. This should slide back. You're looking very nervous, Tommy boy. Does slide back. But of course the big question is, Zen, wee bit of frontal adjust. That last episode ended well, because this works. I'm also not getting piles, which is really good. Oh, and yes, all of this is fucking great. A wee bit more forward. Steering wheel I still want a wee bit closer. So what you cannot see is that for me to use the clutch, my leg's quite bent. Yeah, that's the clutch. Handbrake off, make sure the car doesn't roll. Another inch, just a wee inch pack out on that, which we'll deal with an aftermarket steering wheel with, and that will be golden. Right, passenger seat. So it was close, and there are some wins and some narrow misses involved here. You will think from that distance that these seats are the same height, but they're not. This one is almost exactly 25 millimeters lower than this one. So if you cast your mind back to the previous episode, I have managed to find that 25 millimeter in height, and then some, saved by putting this on the runners the way I did. However, I now have to delete the same 25 mil from that old style runner, well, old style bracket, to make sure this sits at the same height, which is easy done. But what I need to consider is how we're bolting it to the frame. And that's going to be a bit tricky. Now on the plus side, at least the 2 spars that I've got here actually touch this seat when it's put in the full back position. That means my obvious points of contact to mount it are lined up pretty well. But for me to take 25 mil out here also improves things because I recessed this down. Let me show you. By cutting notches in the front and notches in the back, that'll allow this frame, please don't fall, to slot into that and stop any forward and backward movement, thus making these a lot more structural than they should be. The problem I'm going to have though is when it's time to bolt it, because if you remember back, way back to Kirky land, I cut holes and welded in a section of tube steel through it so that when I bolt it in, it doesn't compress the square section steel. And it will if I bolt it in with enough torque. Or will it? That's my concern anyway. Now that I think about it, with everything being spread over here, if I just put a plate, it shouldn't. It shouldn't, should it? Anyway, theory 1 would be, cut my notches here, and then on that notch, put a plate out on each side with a hole, bang, bang, bolt, bolt, similar to the other one, done. My reservation about not having the structural strength within that tube section does kind of put me off. But it doesn't, if you think about it, because it's also going through the alley sheet floor, which spreads it all out. And if I put enough plate on here, it's going to spread the load as well. There's enough other things I've put through this section steel that is not causing me big problems. And all it's doing is holding a seat in. Granted, the weight of a person sitting on it will also be spread across. And the bolt's not really going to, is it? Should we just put it through? Well, let's look at the other options I've got. I did consider welding in little L-shaped standoff brackets that I've chopped out from section iron and just having bolts that go in that way and that way. That way it's welded on here, there's plenty of like load spreading, and you know, you can get bolts in, but it's going to be really awkward to get horizontal mounted bolts in and out of this, especially when you consider when they go out, it's going to hit what's going to be enclosed. So that's not exactly ideal. Getting this one in and out's a doddle because it's just straight up and there's loads of clearance. I can see the bolts are here and I always will be able to. I quite like to have that level of versatility for future me's problems if I ever need to take this seat out in the future. So let's not make life hard for myself down the line. After all, I've done enough of that so far. Let's try some forward thinking for a change. I think I'm going to go through this. Am I going to do that? Yeah, I'm going to do that. Anyway, first steps first. What I need to do is put this back on, line up where the spars actually go here, cut out my 25mm, figure out where the recess needs to be, and then weld on these plates that's going to allow my bolts to go through. What I'm going to then have to do is join these up so that when the seat base is removed, it won't lose its reference point. I probably don't need to do this. In fact, I really don't need to do it. And it's just adding weight, isn't it? Should we do it? Should I do it? I need to have a think. In the meantime, let's get operation, chop the bits out and get the bases bolted into the bloody floor done. I'll think as I go. It's funny how you think of a plan and then halfway through the plan it completely changes into a different plan. This happens a lot with me, but thankfully the plan has become a lot simpler and by all accounts pretty sturdy. So that's both seats in, both seats level, this one doesn't move, that one does. At least that plan we stuck to. Now the next obvious thing for me to deal with is this centre console nonsense. Now obviously I had a bit of a think since the last time we were like, that's not going to line up, and as most people have said in the comments, that's because I'm making it far too complicated. It does need to be a number of different panels. So we're going to sheet both sides first, overlap, and just make them lip here, and then we'll have panels that go over the top to deal with all the top nonsense. So, despite the fact that I've spent lots of time putting these seats in, it's time to get them back out again. Okay, so here's where we're at. As you can see, I've had to do some slight weight addition, but I've tempered it by making it out of aluminium. As you can see, we don't actually have a surface to mate this onto at the back end down at the bottom here. So I've just added a wee bit of the lightest, thinnest aluminium angle iron, and we'll put a couple of rivets through that when it's time to put on the side sheet. So what I've decided to do is an overlap. So we'll sheet all of the side here, and we'll have 25mm of overlap just to rivet along the top of this part here. Now, as you can see, we've made it far simpler than the previous one. Just let's get the sheet out and then work it from there. So what I think I'm going to do with this is we'll get that kind of cut out, we'll get the wee hole for the seatbelt dowel in, and we'll get the gaps for these spars cut out as well. Once they're done, I'm going to put it on, just lightly rest it into place, and on the back side, draw through where all of these rivetable ribs go, because the last thing I want is for this to start resonating. So once they have got mapped, we'll drill holes. I can template it on the other side, make sure we have rivetable parts on it. So that's the plan for that. The other side is going to be slightly easier because when I went off book and cleared diff space, what it has presented me is a nice, really obvious edge. So I also don't really have anything I can butt here, but I can actually fold this further in and rivet it where the snout for the diff will be into there. So that is going to make things a lot easier. So I thought I'd start with the tricky side first, just to make sure this is all going to work. Right, the two side panels are more or less ready to rivet on. However, I'm going to have to review my riveting philosophy. And that's not to say make the videos more exciting, because I can't. Anyway, the point about these is I'm going to rivet and I'm going to bond much the same as the other ones. I'm not going to do the crazy glue because this is only like 1mm thick aluminium. It's not going to add any strength, so there's no point. No, the only reason I'm going to bond here is because I want the resonance, the vibration, the rattling to be nil. So anywhere there's a spar that I can put a bond on that'll stop it doing this, we're going to do that. But the principal strength here is going to be provided by the rivets. And I was just about to get cracked in before I realised something quite important. And that is I'm going to need rivets. Now, I have many rivets. These are the countersunk 4.8mm that I have been using for the big thick aluminium. Now, that's all fine and well. They countersink into the aluminium and I have the depth in it for those countersinks to work. The problem is this is 1mm thick. So if I try and countersink that, I'm pretty much going to be touching on the very edge of that countersink only. It's not going to be particularly strong. Also, if I don't countersink it fully, you're going to have that sitting proud, and that's going to be catching on shit. We don't want that. So what we're going to have to do is use these type of ones, i.e. slightly buttoned on the top, but actually catch all the aluminium and the rest of it goes into the hole. The only problem with that is it's not been the ones I've been using, so I only have 17 of them left. Therefore, I could probably do one of these and then not do the rest. Now, why is that also a problem? I am going to bust open one of these sealing tins, and it'll do that much for one panel, and the rest of it's going to go hard, because no matter how much you try and keep these sealed, they never seal. So that'll go off. The nozzle will be pumped. It's just not one for right now. So, going to go order rivets, going to do the whole lot as a batch. As it happens, on the subject of batches, I was just about to call that quits and get ready to put on the side panels. But I've forgotten another bit. This bit. The bit that I've been putting off for months because it is so convoluted, messy and horrific to contemplate that I've just not done it. So now we need to contemplate it. And really we do need to contemplate it, because once the panel goes on, the accessibility in this is nil. And I mean nil, because like the front's the only way you can do it, and I don't think I want to mount these on the front. So let's get this drafted too, so that when the rivets and the bonding all starts, we can do it as one. Right, so now I need to actually think how I'm going to do it. I think that might be as good as it gets for this episode. I've got all of the panels ready to go. I've dealt with all the things that I need to deal with before the side panels go on. I'm just short on materials, and if I'm being honest, short of time. Because it's getting bloody cold these days. Anyway, I did promise actually that I was going to get a side panel on the day. Right, well. Naturally that's the wrong side. In all fairness, that actually has to happen. It's time for me to start really looking at these and making sure that they're going to fit. Pondering the orb for the next few days and thinking about what's going to catch me out for the next episode, obviously. So, until that comes, Patreons, who are now running upside of the screen, thank you very much for the support. If you don't know what that's about, patreon.com/toolsandtrack. That's why you don't see any ads, because that's the only source of income I take from this. If that's not for you, cool. Like, bell and subscribe though, because everyone tells you to do it and it's not for the hell of it. It does actually help. And until next weekend, guys, drive safe.